I never thought I'd hear my wife moan another man's name. But there it was. Through the crack in the hotel room door, I saw her, Madison, my wife of 6 years, straddling some guy, her nails digging into his shoulders, her voice dripping with lust. And the bastard? Logan. I recognized him instantly. He wasn't just some random guy. He was my friend. The betrayal hit me like a bullet to the chest. My breath caught, my fist clenched, and for a second, I thought I might black out. Then she said it. The words that burned themselves into my brain forever. If my husband ever found out, but he's too stupid for that. Laughter. His and hers. At me. Something inside me snapped. She thought I was stupid? She thought I'd never figure it out? She had no idea I was standing right outside the door. Watching. Listening. And she sure as hell had no idea what was coming next. 12 hours earlier, Madison had been acting off for weeks. Distant. Secretive. Guarding her phone like it held state secrets. Then last night, she came home late, reeking of cologne that wasn't mine. Relax, babe, she said, rolling her eyes. My body, my rules. I didn't argue. Didn't push. Just nodded. Let her think I was clueless. But that night, when she fell asleep, I checked her phone. And that's when I found them. The texts. The lies. The proof. And now? Now, I was about to make sure she paid for every single one. I didn't storm in. Not yet. I wanted her to dig herself deeper. I wanted to see just how low she'd sink, how easily the lies dripped from her lips. So I pulled back, heart slamming against my ribs, and left the hotel hallway. But I wasn't going home. Not yet. Instead, I waited. An hour later, they walked out of the hotel, hand in hand like some lovesick teenagers sneaking around. Madison was laughing, whispering something in his ear. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. They didn't even look around. They thought they were untouchable. I followed them to the parking lot, staying far enough behind that she wouldn't notice me. And then, right as she reached for the car door, I called her name. She froze. Slowly, she turned, her eyes going wide. Ethan? She looked like she'd seen a ghost. Logan tensed beside her, glancing between us, already realizing just how deep in S***T they were. I stepped closer. Go ahead, Madison. Tell me where you were tonight. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. For the first time, she had no lie ready. No snarky remark. No excuse. I waited. Then, like clockwork, the mask slipped back on. Her lips curled into a smirk, like she still had control. I don't owe you an explanation. I let out a short laugh, shaking my head. Oh, but you do. Her eyebrows arched. Really? My body, my rules, remember? I felt the heat rising in my chest, but I refused to give her the reaction she wanted. Instead, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. And then I pressed play. Her voice echoed in the silent parking lot. The recording of her in that hotel room, giggling, whispering, calling me stupid. Calling him by name. Logan took a step back. Madison, what the hell? She lunged for the phone, but I pulled it away. Don't, I warned, voice steady. You don't get to play the victim now. Her face twisted with anger. You spied on me? I almost laughed at the audacity. I caught you screwing my friend, Madison. I tilted my head. But sure. Let's talk about my trust issues. She crossed her arms. You're pathetic. Logan was already backing away, realizing his mistake. Dude, I turned to him. Don't. You're not a dude. You're a rat. He flinched. I took a deep breath and looked back at the woman I once thought I knew. The woman who had just thrown away everything we built together. You know what, Madison? I pocketed my phone. You're right. She smirked, thinking she won. Then I dropped the final bomb. My body, my rules. And I sure as hell won't be spending another second of my life with you. And with that, I walked away, leaving her standing there, speechless for the first time in her damn life. I didn't look back. Not when she called my name. Not when she shouted something about how I was overreacting. Not when Logan tried to mumble some excuse like a coward caught in the act. I just kept walking. But the second I got into my car, the adrenaline crashed. My hands trembled against the steering wheel. My pulse pounded in my ears. I should have felt relieved. Victorious, even. But all I felt was a deep, gnawing emptiness. 6 years. Gone in an instant. I sat there, gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, staring at the dashboard like it held answers. The rage was still there, burning under my skin, but now something else mixed in. Something that felt a lot like grief. I replayed every moment in my head, every late night she worked late, Every time she smiled at me like I was the only man in the world. Every time she kissed me goodbye before running straight into another man's arms. How long had I been a joke to her? The thought made me sick. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I almost ignored it. But then I saw the name. Madison. Of course. I let it ring. She called again. And again. Finally, a message popped up. We need to talk. Please. Talk? Now she wanted to talk? I exhaled sharply and tossed the phone onto the dashboard. There was nothing left to say. But I wasn't an idiot. She wasn't messaging out of guilt. She was messaging because she knew she was about to lose control. That was the thing about women like Madison. It wasn't about love. It was about winning. And she was about to lose. I started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot, driving nowhere in particular, just trying to breathe through the anger. But as I made it halfway home, something nagged at me. A question I hadn't let myself ask yet. Why Logan? She had 100 chances to cheat with some random guy, some stranger I'd never even know about. But she picked him. And that's when the pieces started clicking into place. This wasn't new. This wasn't some recent mistake. This had been happening for a long time. A fresh wave of rage flooded through me, gripping my chest like a vice. I wasn't done. Not yet. I made a sharp turn, tires screeching against the pavement. If Madison thought I was going to just disappear quietly, she was dead wrong. I drove straight past my house. There was no point in going back there, not when I knew every room would remind me of her. Of the lies. Of the years I wasted believing I had a faithful wife. Instead, I headed toward the one place I knew would give me answers, Logan's apartment. The drive was a blur, my thoughts running wild. How long had this been going on? How many times had he sat across from me, drinking my beer, pretending to be my friend while sneaking around with my wife? By the time I pulled up outside his building, my hands were steady again. My mind was clear. I wasn't going to let this go. I got out, walked straight to his door, and knocked. Hard. No answer. I knocked again, louder. Still nothing. Then I noticed something. His car wasn't in the driveway. He wasn't home. Coward. I clenched my jaw, trying to decide my next move when my phone buzzed again. Another message from Madison. Ethan, please just talk to me. She was panicking now. Good. I took a deep breath and typed out a response. Come home. Alone. We'll talk. I hit send and turned back toward my car, already knowing exactly how this conversation was going to go. By the time I got home, Madison's car was already in the driveway. She must have sped all the way here, desperate to fix the mess she created. I walked inside, and there she was, pacing in the living room, arms crossed, looking more frustrated than guilty. She spun around the second I stepped inside. Ethan, what the hell was that? You embarrassed me in front of Logan. I let out a sharp laugh. Embarrassed you? I stepped closer. Madison, I caught you cheating on me, and your biggest concern is how it made you look? She rolled her eyes. Oh, come on, don't be so dramatic. I stared at her, waiting for something, remorse, regret, even an apology. But there was nothing. Just that same smug attitude like she had every right to do what she did. I shook my head. How long? Her brows furrowed. What? How? Long? My voice was low, controlled. She sighed, rubbing her temples like I was the one exhausting her. I don't know. A while. A while. I exhaled slowly, fighting the urge to punch a hole through the wall. I turned away, running a hand over my face. So all those nights you came home late? The last-minute girls' trips. The weekends I thought you were working. She cut me off. Oh, don't act like you're some perfect husband, Ethan. You were always so predictable. So boring. You never even noticed anything was wrong. I turned back, staring at her in disbelief. So this is my fault now? She shrugged. Maybe if you paid more attention, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. I felt something inside me snap. I nodded slowly. Okay. She frowned. Okay, what? I grabbed my phone and pulled up the recording. The one from earlier in the hotel. The one where she called me stupid, where she laughed about how I'd never figure it out. I hit play. Her face drained of color. Ethan, stop. I turned up the volume. Logan's voice filled the room. He won't find out. Guys like him never do. Her jaw clenched. Turn it off. I did. But I wasn't finished. I scrolled down and sent the file to every single one of her family members. Her parents. Her sister. Even her boss. Her phone vibrated a second later. She grabbed it, eyes widening as she realized what I'd done. She looked up at me, her face finally showing real fear. You. I cut her off. My body. My rules, right? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. For the first time in our entire marriage, Madison had nothing to say. And that was the best damn feeling in the world. She stood there, gripping her phone, her fingers twitching over the screen as if she could somehow undo what had just happened. As if she could take back every lie, every betrayal, every time she snuck around behind my back. Her breathing was uneven now. Ethan, you didn't. I folded my arms and tilted my head. Oh, but I did. She looked at me like I had just destroyed her life. And maybe I had. But the thing was, she was the one who lit the fire. I just made sure she burned with it. Her phone kept buzzing, the notifications rolling in. She turned away, swiping frantically. Probably her family. Her boss. Maybe even Logan, the coward, trying to figure out if I'd sent it to his people too. Her voice was tight when she spoke. Do you have any idea what you've done? I let out a short laugh. Yeah, Madison. I took your advice. I stepped forward, voice low. My body, my rules. She swallowed hard. For the first time since I walked in, she looked afraid. Good. She started pacing, hands shaking now. I could almost hear her brain scrambling, trying to come up with some way to flip this, some way to manipulate me into thinking I was the bad guy. I wasn't falling for it. Not anymore. She stopped pacing and turned back to me, switching tactics. Her face softened, her eyes wide. Ethan. I was confused. I arched a brow. Confused. She nodded quickly, stepping closer, voice suddenly dripping with fake vulnerability. You have to understand. I never meant to hurt you. I felt like something was missing. Like we were drifting apart. I scoffed. So your solution was screwing my friend? She flinched. Just for a second. Then she took another step forward, reaching out to touch my arm. I didn't move. She dropped her voice to a whisper. We can fix this. I stared at her, then at her hand on my arm. Then I laughed. Not just a chuckle, a full, deep laugh from my chest. She blinked. What's so funny? I looked her dead in the eye. You still think I'd take you back? Her mouth opened slightly, like she actually believed I might. I shook my head, stepping back, pulling my keys from my pocket. You're not worth fixing, Madison. Her face twisted. First shock, then anger, then pure rage. She clenched her jaw. You're going to regret this. I smirked. No, Madison. The only regret here is that I didn't see through you sooner. She opened her mouth to say something else, but I was already turning away, walking toward the door. I didn't need to hear any more excuses, any more lies. I opened the door, stepped outside, and for the first time in years, I felt free. The cold night air hit me as I stepped outside, but it didn't chill me. It felt like the first deep breath I'd taken in years. The weight that had been crushing me, the lies, the doubt, the sickening feeling in my gut, was finally gone. Behind me, I could still hear Madison pacing inside, probably deciding whether to chase after me or smash something. I didn't care. I walked to my car, slid into the driver's seat, and just sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. I should have felt broken, devastated, wrecked, but I didn't, because I knew this wasn't a loss. It was an escape. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I glanced at the screen. Another message from Madison. Come back inside. Let's talk. I stared at it for a second, then another, and then I did something I should have done a long time ago. I blocked her number. The second her name disappeared from my screen, a strange calm settled over me. Like cutting that last thread between us had finally given me back control. I started the engine and pulled out of the driveway without looking back. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew one thing for damn sure. Wherever I ended up, it would be far away from Madison and her lies. And for the first time in a long time, I felt alive. I drove without a destination, just letting the road stretch out in front of me, the city lights blurring past. The silence in the car wasn't empty, it was clean. No more second-guessing, no more wondering if I was crazy for suspecting her. The truth had set me free. I didn't feel sad. Not really. I felt lighter, as if I'd been dragging a dead weight for years and only now realized I could drop it. Eventually, I pulled into a gas station, needing a break. I got out, grabbed a drink from inside, and leaned against my car, watching people come and go. Regular people living regular lives, without betrayal and lies poisoning their every thought. My phone was quiet. No more calls. No more messages. It was over. I checked my bank app out of habit and saw that Madison had already started transferring money from our joint account. Predictable. I smirked and opened another app. My lawyer's number was already saved. She could take what she wanted from that account. I had already moved the important stuff. She had underestimated me. Again, by the time I got back into my car, something in me had settled. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. I pulled back onto the road, heading forward, towards something new, towards something better. Madison had made one thing clear: my body, my rules. And from now on, I was the one making the damn rules. I kept driving, the hum of the engine steady, the city fading into the background. The more miles I put between myself and Madison, the clearer my mind became. She thought she broke me. She thought I'd crumble, beg, or maybe even lash out in some desperate attempt to win her back. She had no idea who she was dealing with. The old me, the fool who trusted too easily, who let love blind him, died the moment I heard her moan another man's name. The new me? He wasn't wasting another second on a woman who never deserved him in the first place. A notification popped up on my phone. A message from an unknown number. "We need to talk." I smirked. Madison, obviously. Desperate enough to try a different number. I blocked it without even opening the message. I didn't need to hear her excuses, her fake tears, or her twisted version of the truth. She was already erased from my life. Somewhere in the distance, the sun was rising. A new day, a clean slate. I cracked the window, letting the crisp morning air wash over me. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but for the first time in a long time, I was sure of one thing. I was never looking back.